Is it school sports day, summer camp, with freshly made beds, eat-all-you-can buffet, and the inevitable video games? Or how about some pool? And why can't we see their faces or hear their voices? Here's why. Because these children are in a detention camp, held against their will, first in giant cages in this warehouse on the Texas border with Mexico. Tin foils for comfort blankets. Eventually separated from their parents. Under President Trump's new zero-tolerance policy, their parents are now being prosecuted for crossing illegally into the US. This means the children and minors need to be detained separately. More than 2,000 in 6 weeks and counting. The point of this policy, deterrence. The response, outrage.
The Bush administration and the Obama administration faced issues like these, and in both those administrations they decided that there was one place they would never go, and that was to separate families.
This is not the Texas I know, this is not the America that I grew up in, and I am so concerned for the future welfare of not only these little children, the teenagers, the parents, the trauma that they are experiencing, but also for the future of our mental state as a nation.
Agreeing with her former First Lady Laura Bush, who was uncharacteristically scathing today. "It is immoral and it breaks my heart," she tweeted. And even Melania Trump, seen here in a rare appearance in May, championing the cause of children as First Lady, released a statement saying that she hated to see children separated from their parents. She wasn't blaming her husband by name, but even she clearly thought that a red line of compassion had been crossed.
Of a healthy and balanced life.
Undeterred, just a few hours later, her husband took to the microphone, blamed the Democrats, and channeled the campaign thunder that first got him America's attention 3 years ago.
The United States will not be a migrant camp, and it will not be a refugee holding facility. It won't be. You look at what's happening in Europe, you look at what's happening in other places, we can't allow that to happen to the United States, not on my watch. They could be murderers and thieves and so much else. So we want a safe country, and it starts with the borders, and that's the way it is. We want safety.
The words may sound outlandish. They've divided his own party, but their spirit is contagious beyond America's borders. In Italy last week, where the new interior minister decided to turn back a boat packed with migrants and refugees. And in Germany, where Angela Merkel's government is in danger of collapsing because of fundamental disagreements about her so-called welcoming culture for mass migration. Back on the border with Mexico, the metal wall looks forbidding. This one actually dates back to President Obama's days. He deported more migrants than all previous presidents combined. But Donald Trump has turned the policy into a clarion call for America first, toughened it up, and thumbed his nose at the huddled masses and what was once America's culture of compassion.
Well, the experience of migrants coming over the border from Mexico to the United States has been documented for the past decade by the award-winning Getty photographer John Moore. I spoke to him earlier and asked him how he managed to capture such emotive images.
I had been photographing the Border Patrol observing rafts coming across the border. The U.S.-Mexico border is formed by the river, the Rio Grande, there at McAllen and Reynosa. And people came across with a moonless sky in the dead of night. And when everyone formed up on a road, they gathered together. The Border Patrol took them in. Now, I should mention asylum seekers, unlike some other undocumented immigrants, are not running away from Border Patrol officers. In fact, they seek them out because they want to turn themselves in for political asylum. In this case, I saw this group of mostly women and children. They were all huddled together when the U.S. Border Patrol agent, who I had been photographing, came upon them in a vehicle and shined a spotlight upon them. Of course, although they were searching for Border Patrol agents to turn themselves into, they were very terrified in the moment. They traveled very long distances, over thousands of miles, to reach the U.S. border. They'd crossed in the middle of the night. They were scared. And, you know, I looked at this young child, and she would not get out of her mother's embrace. She did not want to be set down. She was very nervous. And her mother breastfed her for a while. She tried to calm her down. And the Border Patrol, they took people's names, they looked at their IDs, found out which countries they came from, and everyone, one by one, was searched before the Border Patrol transported them to a processing center. And when it came the turn of this mother, they asked her to set her child down. And she very reluctantly did. As soon as the little girl, as soon as her feet reached the ground, she broke out in tears. It was very emotional. As a father myself of two girls and a young boy, a toddler, it hit me very hard. I was able to photograph that scene really for, you know, less than 10 seconds, very few pictures before they were put into a van and taken away, and I had to take a few deep breaths myself. It's very hard for most Americans to put themselves in the shoes of someone who's coming across a river, escaping violence in their own country. That said, I think that pictures that make people feel are the ones that we remember. I take photographs almost every day in my job. I'm a photojournalist. I've been doing this for over 25 years. I've covered the border for many years as well. I just published a book earlier this year called Undocumented, specifically about this phenomenon. This is the latest chapter in a story that's been going for a very long time. But if I can make a photograph that make people feel, that make people think,